Hello, how are you? I'm Royle and welcome to another edition of Motor Mania, the show that gives you the lowdown on all matters motoring. Now we're going to start this week with another blast from the past, as Royle, he's been to look at that great classic German car, the Volkswagen Beetle, a legend in its own lifetime, and it's still going strong. And then we're on the culture trail again with Steve Volkins, and this week he's looking at Italy, bellissimo, that sort of thing, you get the idea. And then on to Richard Hammond. Mr. Hammond, at last, I'm pleased to say, we've got him out of a sports car because he's been given the great task of seeing just how big those huge American motorhomes fare on our lovely sunny British roads. And as for me, well, I'll be giving you the highlights of that awesome Max Power live show earlier this year.
When someone rings you up and tells you he's got 400 cars booked in, it's got to be worth looking at. Welcome to Autograss Racing. Autograss is one of the most popular forms of grassroots motorsport in the country, with over 50 clubs affiliated to the governing body, the National Autograss Sports Association. The sport evolved from a form of racing popular in the 1970s called jalopy. The meetings are staged in unused fields, the track is oval in shape and the surface is made up of either grass or mud. I'm with Class 10 racer Dean Forward. Dean, how did you get into Autograss?
I used to do the circuits with karting, and a friend of mine introduced me to Autograss, let me have a go with his car on the Sunday, and on the Monday I bought one. What
are the techniques for actually racing?
Well, it all depends on what they've done with the track. They can change the track from heat to heat. As you've probably seen, they water the track every now and again, and that makes it very, very tricky. When it's dry, it's nice to be smooth, use all the grip, but when it's wet, it becomes a bit of a handful.
Obviously, one of the most important aspects is safety, and certainly with cars racing, open wheel cars like this one, the accidents when they come must be quite spectacular. How safe is it as a sport?
We all have to build the cars to a stringent book of rules. The cars are very safe, they're built with safety in mind, so serious accidents are very rare.
And obviously all the safety precautions are in place at all official meetings anyway?
Oh yeah, we have doctors and ambulances. The racing won't go ahead unless the ambulances are there.
Now your car is an amazing little beast, so can you show us all the different aspects of it from front to back, please?
Yeah, sure. The front end's independent suspension on double wishbones with a standard shock absorber in a standard place. The front end sometimes doesn't do that great, doesn't do a lot, especially when the power's down.
Because it's not touching the ground?
That's right, yeah.
And it's got quite an amazing lock.
That's full lock, and sometimes it's still not enough.
Now, the most important thing about this car, as far as I'm concerned, from a technical point of view, are the two things you've got at the back. Can you explain what they are?
Yeah, sure. What we've got in the back, we've got two Yamaha Thunder Ace engines, 1000cc each, geared up through a Jeff Braceford drive box, going out of a single output shaft.
And how much brake horsepower are they putting out?
This is probably 280 brake horsepower, something along that region.
And what kind of speeds will you hit on the straights?
The geared down, we'll probably hit about 90, 100 miles an hour in the straight, but we only use second and third gear.
And suspension on the back?
Yeah, I use shock absorbers through a trailing arm to get decent weight transfer.
And the other thing, of course, is the exhaust, which is quite a complex beast. Is that specially tuned?
Yeah, that's specially tuned lens, tailor-made to fit the car.
Well, we're here at your big meeting of the year this weekend, so obviously it's quite hectic for you. How's it gone so far?
So far we're doing all right. We had a win in the first heat. The second heat we've just had a third. We've got one more heat and then the final. If we have a good third heat, then hopefully we'll be in the final.
Well, we'll let you get on and get this thing ready, and we'll nip back and see how you do later on.
Thanks very much.
Well, let's see some of these Autograsses in action. Right, let's meet the winner of that last race, who just happens to be the bloke we spoke to earlier. Dean, that didn't look too rough, mate.
That was all right, yeah. Third heat, good win, now we're in the final. It's all on this next race.
You had a very, very strong start.
Yeah, it's one of the beauties of this car. It transfers the weight real quick and comes out of the gate. But having only 5 laps to do it in, you've got to get to that first corner or be able to challenge in that first corner. Otherwise, the race is over.
And it's all about getting the power down as you're coming out as well.
Yeah. If you heard, I'll feather in the throttle because it's starting to get a little bit slippy. Get the power down and we can do it, yeah.
As you probably noticed, in common with most of the people we talk to on Mad and Max, Dean is a really nice guy who loves his sport with a passion. He also happens to be very, very good at it, which helps. But one final point, this is a supercharged V8, and Dean's car is a twin 1000cc bike engine screaming beast. They race together. Now, if you need me to explain to you why Dean races in Class 10 Autograss, you're watching the wrong programme.
One of the cars of the last century has had a quite amazing history to it. It's hardly changed since its launch back in 1937, and it was a dream of Adolf Hitler's and designed by none other than Ferdinand Porsche. I'm talking, of course, about the VW Beetle. And, of course, we're not talking about the one that was launched some 2 years ago, the Beetle 2, but original classic cars like these, revamped and restored, and very much a part now of motoring history. The VW Beetle was originally part of Hitler's plan to supply a car to the masses of the Third Reich, and one that the average working-class German family could afford. June the 22nd, 1934, saw the German Automobile Manufacturers Association sign a contract with Porsche to develop the car. 3 years later, VW was founded to build the Beetle, although due to the war, it was 1947 before it was officially launched. Now, one of the most distinctive characteristics about the Beetle is, of course, the air-cooled engine at the back of you, and as soon as you crank it up and rev it a bit and hear that very, very unique sound, you know that you're in a Beetle, that's for sure. Driving it is, to be honest, quite something. It's a bit of an experience because it's just so different. In this 1962 model, for instance, there is no heater. It's got a fuel gauge, it has got windscreen wipers, but you can't demist the screen whatsoever. So on a day like this when it's raining, it's getting very steamy inside here, and you can hardly see anything, so it's a case of wiping it all down. But anyway, I have to say I'm very fond of the Beetle, because mainly it's the car that I learned to drive in back in the early 1980s or something like that. My mum had a Beetle for, well, quite a few years actually. It was a 1300 model. It was that gorgeous creamy colour. What on earth possessed her to buy that, heaven only knows, but she did. And it kind of served us well for a while. But of course, it's the lack of performance that gets a young teenager. The fact that it only does 75 miles an hour and performance is not particularly fantastic. And it's the quirky things like the pedals that are floor mounted. Also the driving position, which to be honest is not tremendously comfortable, and the bouncy seats as you go along, but it's an experience, believe me. Milestones in the Beetle's history were 1957, which saw the 2 millionth leave the production line. 1960, the semaphore arm was replaced by indicators. In 1966, VW introduced the 1500 model, and in 1974, production finally stopped at the factory in Wolfsburg, Germany. So what can you honestly say about VW's Beetle? Well, you don't buy this sort of car for comfort and luxury particularly, nor do you buy it for performance. But you buy it because of the wonderful shape that has lasted since way back in 1937 when it was originally launched, and the fact that it has become such an amazing sight on our roads today. And that's why I think everybody has memories of VW's Beetle, me included.
Well, that's all we've got for part one, but don't go away, because right after the break we're going to be seeing how Richard gets on with that massive motorhome, and I'll be bringing you the highlights from that NEC show. But I'll tell you what, they don't half make cars strong these days.
Today's global village, it's encouraging to remember that even cars built for a world market still portray many of the characteristics of their country of origin. Take, for instance, the Italians. They've given us a lot over the last 2,500 years. There was Julius Caesar, for instance, classical architecture, the Renaissance, and spaghetti. They're passionate people, and they put in every ounce of commitment and emotion into everything they do. Now, to an Italian, a car isn't just a means of transport, it's a work of art. And there are many art critics around the world who could argue quite convincingly that over the last 100 years, some of the product from the Italian automotive industry is every bit as inspiring and beautiful as the interior of the Sistine Chapel. Take, for instance, this Ferrari F360 Modena. It's a true post-millennium automotive masterpiece. You don't even have to drive it to enjoy it. You could put it on a plinth in a gallery and just sit back and marvel at its purity of lines. Even the engine bay is aesthetically perfect. Now, a car as beautiful as this could have only been built from the heart with the sort of passion for cars found only in Italy. Another Italian mark with an impressive heritage is Maserati. Its Trident badge speaks volumes about sports cars and past racing successes. Here again, attention to detail is matched only by the thrills on offer from behind its leather-clad steering wheel. The Maserati is as suave and fashionable as the archetypal Italian male. It oozes testosterone, it's beautifully coiffured, athletic and seductive. Its sole purpose is to delight both the passengers and those it passes by. It's a piece of functional sculpture. Italy is a beautiful country with spectacular scenery and a deep sense of history. Its natives are hot-blooded and passionate. It's no great surprise, therefore, that they are uniquely gifted in the crafting of such beautiful cars.
Now, when you think of car shows, what springs to mind? Well, for me, it's lots of beardy old blokes in the park on a Sunday afternoon with line after line after line of tired, ratty, leaky old sports cars. Well, think again. Okay, so you've got a taster of what goes on here. Let's see if we can grab some of the punters and get the word on the floor. Excuse me, mate.
Yes, mate.
Just a few questions for you.
Yeah,
why'd you come to a show like this?
Well, I'm interested in modified cars. You know, we've got to come and see what's on the market, what's available, maybe buy a few bits, check out the girls, of course, and some very, very tasty motors knocking about.
Yeah, have you been to these sort of events before?
I've not been to a Max event before. I've been to a few car shows in my time, but this is my first time at something like this, and I've got to say I'm impressed.
Fantastic. And the girls, what's the rating?
Very, very hot.
Fantastic. Let's find another one. Why did you come down to the show today?
Right, just because there's loads of modified cars and get some good ideas from me own myself.
What sort of car have you got?
Escort SI at the minute. Pretty standard apart from straight through exhaust. I just had some ideas for body kits, sound systems, things like that.
And I presume girlfriend and boyfriend, yeah? Yeah. Would you actually come down to the show on your own?
I don't think so, no.
Are you interested in the cars?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
The fantastic thing about these sort of shows is there's pretty much every make of car catered for. Whether you've got a Ford, a Vauxhall, a BMW, Toyota, doesn't matter. Come down to one of these shows and you'll go away with some fantastic ideas of how to make your car look absolutely brilliant. 99. Oh, tell you what, there's so many gorgeous girls here. I feel the need to get in shape. We've got a couple of great Volkswagens here. Lovely Mark II. Some of these have got engine conversions, all lowered, gorgeous alloy wheels. And from the old Volkswagens right up to a brand new Beetle, bringing us bang up to date. Now, without a doubt, the star of the show for me is this fantastic BMW convertible. So I think we need to find the owners, have a chat, and find out a little bit more about it. So this is definitely my favourite car of the show. Whereabouts have you come from to bring it here?
We come from Belgium.
And did you drive it all the way?
No, we brought it on a trailer and we came by boat.
And is it your car?
No, it's my boyfriend's car, but he doesn't speak English.
Okay, that makes my job a little bit easier. So how long has he actually spent on modifying it?
For the outside it took 6 months, and for the inside also 6 months.
And apart from the obviously fantastic bodywork and wheels and interior, has much been done on the engine?
Yes, he put it in an M3, but normally we can't do that. It's not allowed in Belgium.
So you can't actually modify the power?
No, it's not allowed.
So they don't, I presume the authorities don't know what you've done there?
No, not at all.
And has he done any other cars?
Yes, but they were smaller, not such a big project as this one.
Yeah. And he's done all the work himself?
Yes.
Okay. And does the car get used sort of every day?
No, not at all. Before we used it every day, but now like this, you only use it for at Sundays or for shows.
There you have it. We've seen some amazing cars. Fantastic atmosphere here. Very nice girls as well. So I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into the world of modified cars.
If it makes it any easier, don't think of the British motorhome experience of sitting inside whilst the rain thunders on the tin roof. Think of the American motorhome experience. Great big things as long as an entire street and able to cruise 5,000 miles in a single day without stopping. This is the Autohome Windward, all 27 feet of it. And it started life as a Peugeot Boxer. Come and have a look. Predictably, my little boudoir here boasts all the mod cons necessary to sustain the modern camper. Whilst the motorhome of the late 1990s may have come a long way, it's still the same mad old lady who designs the cloth for the seating. This particular camper van can sleep 6 people, but you'd have to be fairly close, at least you certainly would be by the end of the night. There's plenty of cupboard space, there's also little nooks and crannies for keeping all your cups in place if you get a bit carried away through the twisty stuff. There's a rather nifty little fridge, a shower, and a toilet. Sales of motorhomes are at a 20-year high in the UK. Our roads already play host to 115,000 of these things. And they have really cool names like Symphony, Autostratus, Sundance, Swift Mondial and Compass Drifter. Now, why can't car manufacturers come up with names like that? Well, different drugs, I suppose. Despite having every conceivable luxury out the back, at the front end it's all distinctly van basic. The dash and switchgear come straight from the Peugeot Boxer van range. That said, it's all pretty practical and easy to use. I certainly wouldn't criticise it, apart from the fact that it doesn't look too pretty. The engines also come straight from the Peugeot Boxer van, which means this one has the 2.5 litre turbo diesel. And believe it or not, it's actually quite quick from a standing start. It's not at all bad, it romps away quite nicely. And sure, it's a big old bus, but I reckon it's nowhere near as cumbersome on the road as, say, an ordinary towed caravan behind a car. Of course, in America they have really big vans, don't they? What is it, Winnebagos? I always thought that sounds strangely medical. Oh, me Winnebago, is it flared up again, love? Or like a sandwich. I'll have a Winnebago on rye, please. I don't believe it. Somebody going the other way in a camper van just waved at me. How embarrassing. I'm now a member of the camper van club. So then, to business. What are you going to pay for one of these things? Well, for this particular model, you're paying best part of 30,000. They do start from 26,000, but some people go on to spend more than that, 35, 40, even more than that, which is getting close to the price you pay for an actual bricks and mortar house. Seems like a lot of money to pay for a mobile home like this, but then you can have a lot of fun and a lot of holidays. But then again, if you're paying best part of £30,000, that's what, £3,000 a year on your annual holiday every year for 10 years. You can go to an awful lot of nice places in the sun for that. So would I buy one of these? Absolutely not. Would I go away in one for a couple of weeks? Oh, absolutely. And in fact, the good news is that you can hire such vehicles, and maybe that's the way to go. In fact, I think it's time for me to enjoy a taste of freedom now and head off into the sunset. Head for the hills, freedom at last, like a lone cowboy into the sunset. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have a cup of tea first. Now, where did I put my kettle? Oh no, has anybody seen my kettle?
Well, that's it for another edition of Motor Mania, and I hope you've enjoyed it this week. Now, on next week's show, Ian Royle's been looking at some really exotic motors as he visits a specialist car importer. Steve Volkins' Culture Trail takes him all the way to America, and earlier this year, well, the Men and Motors team went up to Royle in Scotland to look at a fantastic quarter-mile drag racing strip, and we'll have those highlights for you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.